The alien debate never died, and up to this day, humans have developed a love-hate relationship with these unidentified objects and even creatures. Sometimes we almost believe they are real, but the next day, science provides an explanation. However, recent sightings and discoveries are boggling minds again. From politicians vouching on it to insects attacking farmers, we're about to witness the best pieces of evidence there is. It's another day to get convinced or confused, and we'll see in the end if you start believing the existence of aliens. Let's start, shall we? Men in Black. Imagine the allure of the Men in Black films, entertaining with the exception of that unfortunate spin-off, yet beneath the surface of this cinematic fantasy lies a chilling reality. Reports of UFO sightings and extraterrestrial encounters often come with unsettling visits from enigmatic figures known as the Men in Black. These are not the charming characters portrayed by Will Smith. Rather, they are shadowy individuals clad entirely in black who seek out witnesses, coercing them into silence or, in some instances, making them mysteriously disappear. A particularly eerie episode unfolded in 2009, captured on film in a hotel lobby in Ontario, Canada. Two peculiar men, devoid of eyebrows and eyelashes, entered the scene, their heads adorned with hats that seemed to conceal wigs. Strikingly identical, they approached the bellboy with an unsettling intensity, inquiring about the manager, Shane Sullivan. When informed that Shane was absent, their disbelief was palpable, prompting them to rummage through the premises as if they were the rightful owners. Their motives remained elusive, and after a brief yet unnerving presence, they vanished without a trace. The reason for their visit? Shane had reported witnessing a large triangular UFO hovering over Niagara Falls the previous year, a memory he had nearly dismissed, but evidently someone had not forgotten. Many UFO aficionados speculate that the Men in Black are clandestine government operatives, intent on quelling information regarding alien encounters. However, one must ponder the possibility of something more sinister. With their lack of hair and strikingly similar features, could they themselves be extraterrestrial beings? It raises the question, might they be safeguarding their own existence while pursuing their enigmatic agenda? Oh dear, I believe I see two figures in black suits approaching me now. Skinny Bob. Many purported alien encounters are characterized by indistinct, low-resolution images of remote flying objects. This phenomenon arises from the fact that creating a convincing close-up of an extraterrestrial being would necessitate substantial financial resources, time, and expertise. This context leads us to the enigmatic figure known as Skinny Bob, which is not a reference to an eccentric relative, but rather to a claimed alien entity. Allow me to elaborate. In 2011, a Reddit user by the name of Ivan shared an unusual video, asserting that it contained footage sourced from the KGB. The clip features Skinny Bob and is, quite frankly, rather disconcerting. What exactly are we observing? Is there a possibility that this could be authentic? Ivan contended that the alien depicted in the video was engaged in a diplomatic mission from the Zeta Reticuli star system intended to address issues of shared interest. The specifics of these issues remain unknown, but the footage is purportedly part of an interview with the extraterrestrial being. The intrigue deepens with the involvement of visual effects specialist Randy Sharp, who has contributed to films such as I Am Legend and Watchmen. Sharp evaluated the video and remarked that if it were indeed fabricated, it would have posed a significant challenge, even with the technological capabilities available in 2011. Executing such a deception would demand extraordinary skill and could have incurred costs upwards of $250,000. Notably, no individual has come forward to take credit for the video or to monetize it. Thus, if this were an intricate ruse, the circumstances do not seem to align. Is Skinny Bob a genuine extraterrestrial? The answer remains elusive, leaving us to remain vigilant for any future appearances, whether in another video or perhaps even in a cinematic production. The secrets of Area 51. Area 51 is the center of almost every alien conspiracy you can think of. With all the talk about secret experiments and research on aliens happening at this secret military base, it's tough not to believe there might be some truth to it. Just ask Bob Lazar. He would definitely say yes. Back in the late 80s, Lazar claimed he was brought in for a crazy job at Area 51, figuring out how to reverse engineer alien spaceships. In 1997, he said that the ship he worked on had an antimatter reactor that ran on a stable version of element 115. The crazy part? Element 115 wasn't even officially made by scientists on Earth until 2013, and we still can't keep it stable for very long. Lazar described the reactor as having a sphere the size of a basketball on top that created a force field strong enough to push people away. He said the spaceship had 2 levels. The upper level had the reactor in the middle, connected to an antenna with 3 gravity amplifiers around it. These amplifiers shaped gravity waves into a heart-like pattern around the ship, getting narrower at the bottom. On the lower level, there were gravity emitters that could spin to create an anti-gravity wave. Lazar explained that the saucers actually fly sideways, with their bellies facing forward, by riding these gravity waves, allowing them to zoom around in any direction. If that's not enough to blow your mind, Lazar also claimed he saw documents at the base that said Earth has been in contact with aliens, described as small, childlike gray beings, for at least 10,000 years. He even said he had seen some alien bodies himself. But this is where things start to get really complicated. Every organization he claims to have worked for, including Area 51, has denied ever employing him. However, journalist George Knapp, who investigated Lazar's assertions, noted that Lazar possessed knowledge about the base that only someone with insider access could have. Some believe this is part of a cover-up, while others view Lazar as merely an exaggerated tech enthusiast. It's important to remember that he once constructed a jet-powered car for fun and has been recognized in newspapers for his engineering talents, indicating he is far from an amateur. A particularly unusual aspect of Lazar's narrative involves a biometric hand scanner at Area 51. He asserts that the scanner assessed the length of hand bones for access verification. Initially, the government denied the existence of such technology, but years later, they acknowledged that the Department of Defense utilized it in the 80s for the stealth fighter program. Lazar even verified that the declassified scanner matched his recollections precisely. If the government truly aimed to discredit Lazar, they could have simply stated, yes, he worked here, but he's lost his mind. Instead, they maintain he was never employed there at all. Why is that? While it doesn't guarantee that Lazar's account is entirely accurate, the numerous coincidences make it difficult for many to dismiss it outright. So, is Bob Lazar being truthful? He has consistently maintained the same story for over 3 decades and has even passed lie detector tests regarding it. Critics often highlight Lazar's past convictions to undermine his credibility, but in light of recent UFO sightings, one might begin to reconsider whether Lazar is as delusional as he appears. The Phoenix Lights. To date, several have examined several prominent UFO sightings. However, none can rival the sheer volume of individuals who reported witnessing the phenomenon known as the Phoenix Lights. This occurrence comprised 2 distinct events that unfolded on the evening of March 13, 1997, across the skies of Nevada and Arizona. The initial sighting commenced around 7:30 p.m. when a resident of Henderson, Nevada, observed a series of luminous orbs traversing the sky. These lights gradually moved across state lines toward Phoenix, Arizona, covering an expanse of nearly 300 miles and observed by thousands, including the actor Kurt Russell. The lights arranged themselves in a V formation, with some witnesses asserting they could discern the craft itself through the clouds before it passed over the city and disappeared without a trace. Remarkably, the situation became even more peculiar. At approximately 1 a.m., numerous residents in Phoenix reported observing another set of bright lights suspended in the sky. UFO skeptic Robert Schauer posits that these lights originated from 2 separate training exercises conducted by the U.S. Air Force involving A-10 jets. One of these exercises featured the aircraft flying in a triangular formation, while the other involved the deployment of flares. While this explanation appears plausible, it has not garnered universal acceptance. In 2007, former Arizona Governor Fife Symington III, who also witnessed the lights, publicly shared his account. As a pilot, he claimed familiarity with all types of aircraft and maintained that what he observed that night was unlike anything he had ever encountered. Rather than dismissing the official narrative, he advocated for a more thorough investigation into the incident. Consequently, even after many years, the enigma surrounding the Phoenix Lights remains unresolved, suggesting that the mystery continues to linger. Brace yourself for a striking, bizarre, but technical object that has a local name. Keep watching. Oumuamua. Uninvited visitors can indeed be quite troublesome. In 2017, our solar system experienced an unusual encounter with a peculiar red object, estimated to measure between 300 and 3,000 feet in length, which passed by the sun. This object was designated Oumuamua, a Hawaiian term meaning a messenger from afar arriving first. This nomenclature is fitting, as it represented the inaugural instance of such an object being observed, generating considerable excitement and apprehension among astronomers regarding its sudden appearance. The question arose, what exactly was this entity? Oumuamua exhibited a cigar-like shape and was traveling at an astonishing velocity of up to 55 kilometers per second, surpassing the average speed of comets by 20 kilometers per second. However, unlike typical comets, it did not display a visible tail of space dust. The object traversed our solar system for a duration of 11 days before vanishing from sight, leaving many intrigued. Its distinctive features led to speculation about extraterrestrial origins, as it appeared to challenge conventional explanations. Various hypotheses emerged, with some suggesting that Oumuamua was a solid block of hydrogen, while others posited that it was merely an unusually behaving comet. Scientists have proposed a range of theories, including the notion that it was a comet composed of hydrogen ice. The remarkable speed of Oumuamua could be attributed to the release of hydrogen as it approached the sun, which would have enhanced its velocity. Additionally, it is theorized that the absence of a tail was due to hydrogen's insufficient mass to carry space dust along with it. What are your thoughts? Was Oumuamua simply a large space rock? Or does it hint at something more enigmatic? If it were indeed an alien spacecraft observing us, do you believe that governments would conceal this information to prevent widespread panic? Crystal clear. UFO photographs often appear to be of poor quality, resembling images captured with rudimentary devices. They tend to be either excessively blurred or fail to resemble unidentified flying objects in any meaningful way. However, a remarkable exception exists. The Calvine photograph, frequently regarded as the most distinct UFO image ever captured. This notable photograph was taken in 1990 in Scotland by two young chefs and depicts an unusual diamond-shaped object in flight alongside a conventional aircraft. The chefs submitted the image to a newspaper, which, rather than publishing it, forwarded it to the British Ministry of Defence, where it subsequently disappeared for an astonishing 3 decades. In 2020, British journalist David Clarke uncovered the photograph after initially learning of the story in 2009 and searching for the image ever since. He eventually established contact with a former Royal Air Force officer who had retained a print of the photograph and had been awaiting inquiries about it for years. This officer was eager to share the image. Unlike many other UFO encounters, this particular case presents significant challenges to debunking. Andrew Robinson, a senior lecturer in photography at Sheffield Hallam University, examined the photograph and affirmed that the object depicted is indeed present in front of the camera, with no signs of manipulation. Additionally, the RAF officer noted that the witnesses reported the craft emitted no sound at the time of the sighting. This raises intriguing questions. As for the identities of the witnesses, they remain unknown. Although the names and the original photograph were slated for release in 2021, British authorities have opted to withhold this information until 2076, citing privacy issues. This decision may raise suspicions among observers. The Turkish UFO incident. Numerous UFO sightings have attracted significant public interest and incited fervent discussions over the years. However, certain lesser-known incidents warrant greater examination. One such case is the Turkish UFO event. Between 2007 and 2009, 12 distinct witnesses reported observing an unusual metallic object in the skies off Turkey's northwest coast. These witnesses did not merely recount their experiences, they also captured footage of the phenomenon. Although the video is somewhat unsteady, a closer inspection of one sighting reveals two figures moving within the craft. Authorities initially attempted to dismiss these sightings as fabrications, but this assertion proved challenging to uphold. When the most compelling footage was analyzed by two separate state-sponsored committees, they found no basis for discrediting it. In fact, their assessment confirmed the authenticity of the footage. While this does not imply that they were convinced of extraterrestrial involvement, they did verify that the clip had not been manipulated and that the craft did not correspond to any known human technology. This case is indeed remarkable, and it is surprising that it has not garnered more attention. One can almost envision the two occupants inside deliberating whether to stop and inquire for directions. Next up are the insects attacking a person we've mentioned at the onset of the video. Ant abducted. On a quiet night in October 1957, Antonio Villas-Boas, a 23-year-old farmer from Brazil, decided to work in his fields to avoid the heat of the day. While he was busy, he noticed a strange red light in the sky. At first, it looked like a star, but it kept getting bigger and bigger until he realized it was headed right for him. Panic set in, and Antonio tried to escape on his tractor, but it wouldn't start. So he took off running through the fields, but something was chasing him, and it was fast. Before he knew it, several humanoid creatures tackled him and dragged him onto their spaceship. Once aboard, they stripped him naked and covered him in some weird gel. Then they took a blood sample from his chin and left him alone in a locked room filled with gas that made him feel sick. Just when he thought things couldn't get any weirder, a naked female alien entered the room, and well, let's just say she seduced him. After a rather unusual encounter, he was given a quick tour of the spaceship before being dropped back home. Sounds wild, right? This is supposedly a true story told by Antonio himself. At first, many people were skeptical, and it's understandable. However, shortly after his experience, he saw a doctor and was diagnosed with radiation sickness. Now, that doesn't automatically mean his story is true, but it does raise some questions about how he could have gotten sick. Antonio stuck to his story until he passed away in 1991. So, was he really abducted by aliens, or was it all just a way to get attention? Unfortunately, we may never know the answer. The Baal Enigma. Lake Baikal is an enchanting marvel of nature. As the oldest and deepest lake on the planet, it plunges to an astonishing depth of approximately 5,400 feet. To illustrate this grandeur, one could envision stacking two replicas of the Burj Khalifa, the tallest edifice in existence, one atop the other within its depths. The lake's ancient origins and profound depths have birthed a tapestry of legends, accompanied by a plethora of reports detailing peculiar occurrences throughout the years. Witnesses have recounted sightings of unusual lights, enigmatic crafts, and even shadowy figures along its shores. In a captivating incident in 2009, a gentleman named Sergei Kononik and his son were savoring a sunset by the lake when they beheld two luminous orbs ascending from the water's surface. Sergei captured a photograph of these spectral lights before they vanished beneath the waves, lending credence to the notion that something extraordinary was afoot. Yet, the intrigue extends far beyond the surface. In 1982, a contingent of Russian military divers encountered towering humanoid entities while exploring the depths at around 160 feet. Their attempts to apprehend one of these beings were met with resistance as the creatures forcefully propelled the divers back to the surface. This swift ascent posed a grave risk of decompression sickness, commonly referred to as the bends, which can prove fatal. Regrettably, some divers succumbed shortly after surfacing. While these accounts may seem implausible to some, the combination of Sergei's photograph and the myriad of strange narratives surrounding Lake Baikal invites contemplation of deeper mysteries. An undeniable aura of enigma envelops this magnificent lake. Tic Tac UAP. On November 10th, the USS Princeton, another ship in the group, picked up strange signals on its radar near San Clemente Island. These signals didn't match any known aircraft and appeared in groups of 5 to 10 randomly. At first, the radar team thought it was just a glitch, so they turned off the Spy 1 radar system, recalibrated it, and turned it back on. To their surprise, the signals came back even stronger. What the radar detected was mind-boggling. The objects were too fast to be birds, too slow to be planes, and they performed unbelievable maneuvers, like dropping from 20,000 meters to sea level in just seconds. Some even hovered for hours. Over the next few days, the crew spotted tiny, fast-moving objects in the distance through binoculars, leaving everyone confused. Then, on the morning of November 14th, things got even stranger. Fighter jets from Strike Fighter Squadron 41 were flying for a regular training mission when those odd radar signals showed up again. Lieutenant Douglas Kurth was sent to investigate. When he got to the area, he saw a big disturbance in the ocean, like something massive was just beneath the surface. Maybe it was a submarine? There was a submarine from the strike group, the USS Louisville, nearby, so that could have explained it. But what happened next made that idea seem unlikely. Two other fighter jets, each with 2 crew members, also went to investigate, including one piloted by Commander David Fravor. Both Kurth and Fravor saw the water disturbance, but Fravor thought it looked much bigger than a typical submarine. After Kurth returned to the Nimitz, Fravor and his wingmen decided to fly closer for a better look. I've got a clip of Commander Fravor himself explaining what happened that day during his testimony to Congress. It's wild. Let's check it out. As Commander Fravor and his team came back to the aircraft carrier, he informed the next flight crew about their experience and advised them to stay alert. This new crew had a super advanced infrared camera system called the Advanced Targeting Forward-Looking Infrared, ATF-LUR. Chad Underwood, the weapons systems officer who sat behind the pilot, was in charge of it. And honestly, Chad Underwood sounds like a name straight out of a college movie. Anyway, not long after they took off, Underwood spotted something unusual on his radar from several kilometers away. He later mentioned, "What really grabbed our attention was how the object wasn't behaving like anything we know about physics." Now let's take a look at the actual footage they captured. In the video, it starts off in infrared black and white, showing a fuzzy, oval-shaped object in the distance. Underwood briefly switches to visible light, but the object is still hard to see, so he goes back to infrared and zooms in a few times. Then, out of nowhere, the object zips off the screen like it just disappeared. Sadly, it was too far away to see with the naked eye, and neither Underwood nor the pilot could spot it directly. But here's the crazy part. Those weird radar signals kept showing up for at least 2 more days. Some people doubt that the video shows anything unusual, claiming it could just be a plane. But planes don't fly like they're defying gravity. It's not just a few people who think this way. Many experienced military officials support these claims, so whether you believe in UFOs or not, this situation definitely raises questions. Commander Fravor and others say they saw a longer, clearer version of the video, but it hasn't been made public. Interestingly, all the footage and information from that day was reportedly deleted later that night. Several witnesses from the ship said that 2 men came by helicopter, took everything, and erased all the recordings and data. They had never experienced anything like that before. This has led to theories about a possible cover-up. Could the government already know about aliens or advanced technology but doesn't want us to find out? Maybe they think it would cause panic, or they don't want other countries to know. Another idea is that what the crew saw wasn't alien at all, but top-secret military technology like experimental drones. Even if the military is working on amazing new tech, those gravity-defying Tic Tac-shaped crafts still seem pretty unbelievable, right? Fravor thought the strange object was about 12 to 15 meters long and said it looked just like a Tic Tac. So the big question is, were these Tic Tacs just smooth and featureless like the classic UFOs we've heard about, or could there have been cockpits inside with alien pilots who took off when they realized they were seen? We might never find out. One thing is certain, though. This wasn't just a one-time event. There's more to this story. And it really makes you think about what else could be out there. The cube. In case you recall, we previously mentioned that the Tic Tac incident was not an isolated event. A similar occurrence took place along the southeastern coast of the United States in early 2015. While the individuals who recorded the footage have not come forward, several crew members and pilots have provided some insights. Here's what happened. Approximately a decade after the 2004 Tic Tac incident, a naval strike group, led by the USS Theodore Roosevelt aircraft carrier, was engaged in training exercises off Virginia's coast. Much like the previous event, their radar systems began detecting unusual signals. Initially, they suspected a malfunction, but the objects exhibited extraordinary maneuvers, traveling at hypersonic speeds and seemingly defying the laws of gravity. After a thorough equipment check, the team confirmed that the readings were indeed valid. Early attempts to intercept the objects were unsuccessful, but the situation intensified when two jets nearly collided after an unidentified object zipped between them. While the pilots involved in the near collision have remained silent, Lieutenant Ryan Graves, another F-18 pilot, managed to speak with one of them. Graves noted that the pilot appeared visibly shaken by the experience. He later recounted details of this encounter during a UAP hearing in Congress, describing the object as a cube encased within a translucent sphere. It's easy to picture the shock both pilots must have felt, as they had little time to fully comprehend what they witnessed in that fleeting moment. For a bit of fun, I created some mock-up images of what the craft might have looked like, complete with tiny aliens for a whimsical touch. Although the pilots never claimed to have seen any extraterrestrials, it's certainly entertaining to speculate, isn't it? Lieutenant Ryan Graves later clarified that this was not an isolated incident. He noted that numerous pilots observed similar objects over several months. Even more astonishing, these objects were capable of remaining airborne for as long as 12 hours. A few months later, in 2015, while the USS Theodore Roosevelt was stationed near the Florida coast, another remarkable event unfolded. The pilots succeeded in capturing a new video, leaving everyone involved utterly amazed. What makes this footage particularly intriguing is that the craft appeared to rotate and maneuver sideways, reminiscent of Bob Lazar's accounts of the UFOs he worked with. The object even exhibited a heart-like shape, aligning with Lazar's descriptions of how the crafts he reverse-engineered manipulated gravitational forces. Some skeptics suggest that the rotation observed in the video could simply be an optical illusion created by the camera's derotation feature. However, the two pilots who witnessed it are not convinced by that theory. If anyone could identify image rotation, it would certainly be them. Both pilots firmly believed that the craft genuinely rotated. Even Jeremy Corbell, an authority on the AT-FLIR camera system, asserted that it was not an illusion. Moreover, no one has yet provided a satisfactory explanation for how an entire fleet of these objects could traverse crosswind at such astonishing speeds. When discussing UFO footage, it's essential to highlight the individual who brought these videos to light, Luis Elizondo. He led the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, AATIP, a covert government initiative focused on investigating UFO sightings. Frustrated by the lack of support for UFO research, Elizondo resigned in 2017, claiming that certain government officials were staunchly opposed to exploring this phenomenon. He argued that they showed little interest in examining potential national security risks. Many military personnel echo Elizondo's sentiments, asserting that UFO sightings occur far more frequently than the public realizes. However, numerous pilots remain silent, fearing the stigma of being labeled as delusional, which could jeopardize their careers and advancement opportunities. This societal pressure likely influenced the government's shift to the term UAP, unidentified aerial phenomena, instead of UFO, aiming to sidestep the negative connotations associated with alien encounters and abduction tales. Lieutenant Ryan Graves encapsulated this issue during his congressional address, stating, "The stigma surrounding UFOs is still prevalent, and it contributes to the neglect of sightings like these." In 2021, the U.S. Office of the Director of National Intelligence released a preliminary report on UAPs, revealing some alarming insights. The report analyzed 2 decades of data, primarily from U.S. Navy encounters, and concluded that they remain baffled by these phenomena. The UAPs were noted for their ability to exceed the sound barrier without producing a sonic boom, maneuver without any visible means of propulsion, and achieve speeds and agility that would obliterate any known aircraft. The findings confirmed that these objects are indeed tangible and acknowledge their potential risks to safety and national security. The individuals who have stepped forward as witnesses are among the most reliable sources imaginable, and their accounts converge in ways that are difficult to dismiss. However, the most astonishing testimony came from David Grush, a former intelligence officer. During a congressional hearing in 2023, Grush made explosive claims asserting that the U.S. government has established contact with extraterrestrial beings, retrieved crashed spacecraft, and even discovered the remains of non-human pilots. To add to the intrigue, he cautioned that some of these alien entities could pose a threat, suggesting we may be facing significant dangers. So, why has this information remained under wraps until now? Grush pointed to what many would suspect: a vast cover-up. He alleged that the government has taken drastic measures to conceal the truth, even targeting those who attempted to bring it to light. If Grush were to mysteriously disappear, we might have a clue as to where to begin our search. Naturally, the government has denied all allegations, as is their usual response, but Grush, while testifying under oath, reaffirmed his assertions, insisting that the cover-up is genuine and that the government has indeed recovered non-human remains. Although he faced limitations on what he could disclose publicly due to legal constraints, he expressed his willingness to provide further information to Congress in private sessions. Just imagine the secrets he could potentially unveil. Do you think these sightings are real? Write that thought in the section below. Thanks for watching.